Why do so-called Christians occasionally or often get it wrong? Number one, there are some people who go to church and may call themselves a Christian, but they really are not born of the Spirit of God. They've never been transformed by Jesus. They may be a church member, they may carry a Bible, they may claim one thing, but they've never been converted, forgiven, and transformed by the power of Jesus. In fact, Titus 1:16 says, there are some that claim to know God, but by their actions they deny him. In other words, we need to understand that going to church doesn't make you a Christian. Following Jesus does. Even believing in God doesn't make you a Christian, but following Jesus does. There's a second reason, and that is this. Some are Christians, but they're not mature. Young in their spiritual development. We could say they're baby Christians. They haven't learned everything yet. And the author to the Hebrews describes them this way in the 5th chapter, verses 13 and 14. For someone who lives on milk is still an infant. In other words, they're a baby Christian and doesn't know how to do what's right. Solid food is for those who are mature, who through training have the skill to recognize the difference between right and wrong. Why is it that some Christians do say the wrong thing or act in the wrong way or betray your trust? Because they actually are born into the kingdom of God, but they're still developing in their faith. I'll give you a very embarrassing example. In college, I was living in a way that was really far from God. And so was my buddy, who was maybe as wild or wilder than I was. And one week, I knelt down and prayed, God, if you're there, I didn't even know how to really pray. If you're there, show me and I'll give you my life. And he came back after being somewhere else and had a similar experience. And when he came in, I said, I think I've decided I'm religious. And he goes, no effing way. That's what he said, because he didn't know any better. And he said, me too. I was like, that's amazing. And so to celebrate, we went out and got wasted. For those of you that choose to follow Jesus today, I'm recommending a life group or baptism as your next step, not Margarita Monday with 19 margaritas, okay? But I was a brand new follower of Jesus. I didn't know any better. I was still maturing. I didn't know what was right. I didn't know what was wrong. And it's really still no excuse to say, why did they do something that was so hurtful? But there is an understanding and an explanation. There are some people that are still developing in their faith. And number three, some are Christians and maturing, and they still mess up. They still fall into sin. They're still tempted by a very sly and slippery spiritual enemy. And when they do mess up like this doesn't necessarily mean they're a hell-bound hypocrite. They may love Jesus and in a moment of peer pressure tell a lie. They may genuinely love Jesus and speak harshly when their flesh rises up. They may love Jesus and be in a bad spot in their marriage and give in to temptation and betray their marital vows. And it's a heartbreaker and there is no excuse, but the explanation is that sometimes even the most faithful give in to temptation, are deceived and step off of the path and end up hurting others. And I'm gonna tell you right now, no matter how mature you are, you're still vulnerable. And the moment you think you're not, you're even more vulnerable. Be careful when you think you're not vulnerable to temptation, because pride often comes before a fall.